They told you love would save you. That one day you'd meet a woman who would complete you, soften your rough edges, awaken something noble inside. She would look into your eyes and see your soul. And in return, you would give her everything. That's what you were taught. In books, in films, in the way your mother smiled at your father even when he was exhausted, in the silent approval of society when a man chose love over logic. You believed it without question, because everyone did. But Schopenhauer didn't. He looked at love not with the eyes of a poet, but with the mind of a surgeon. And what he saw terrified him, because beneath the songs and the sonnets, beneath the vows and the flowers, he saw a biological program, a brutal cunning and blind force, one that used the illusion of love to manipulate men into sacrifice, suffering, and silence. For Schopenhauer, love wasn't divine. It was Darwinian long before Darwin. He saw it as nature's trap, a trick played by the species to ensure reproduction at any cost. Romantic love, in his eyes, was nothing more than instinct dressed in poetry. And yet, men kept dying for it. The contradiction is horrifying. The more noble a man is, the more likely he is to fall for the illusion. The more honest, the more faithful, the more emotionally vulnerable, the deeper he believes that his love has meaning. And because he believes it has meaning, he is willing to suffer for it. Schopenhauer was not bitter. He was clear. And clarity is the most dangerous kind of heresy in a culture addicted to fantasy. He wrote, "Love in its essence is nothing but the will of the species, not of the individual, not of your soul. Of the species, the code, the unconscious. Love," he said, "is not about happiness. It's about survival." And the tragedy is this: men confuse one for the other. You see, when a man falls in love, he doesn't see clearly. He sees what he needs to see. He projects. He idealizes. He writes poems in his head, imagining destinies. She becomes the one. And in that moment, he becomes blind. He stops seeing danger. He stops listening to his instincts. He ignores the warning signs, the manipulation, the coldness, the cruelty, because he wants the story. He wants the myth to be real. That's what Schopenhauer warned us about, because he saw what most men still refuse to see, that love does not make you free. It binds you. It disorients you. It convinces you that pain is noble and that self-destruction is romantic. It turns lions into lambs. He wrote with ruthless precision about the female instinct in particular, not to demonize women, but to strip away the mask. He saw that nature had endowed women with the power to charm, to select, to manipulate, not out of malice, but necessity. The female seeks security. The male seeks intensity. One is grounded, one is reckless. One withholds, one offers. One selects, one pursues. And the more a man gives, the more vulnerable he becomes. The less valuable he appears. And yet he gives, because he was told that love demands everything. And that a man who doesn't sacrifice doesn't truly love. But what if sacrifice is not love? What if it's just blindness? There's a story of a man, and call him Elias. He met her during college. She wasn't extraordinarily beautiful, but something about her made him feel chosen, seen. She laughed at his awkwardness, touched his shoulder when he spoke, and he thought, finally, they became inseparable. She would fall asleep in his hoodie. He would skip classes to hold her when she cried. He told her about his fears, his childhood, his dreams, and for a moment it felt holy. Until it didn't. One night, she disappeared. No message. No goodbye. A week later, he saw her with someone else. Not just walking. Laughing. Wearing his hoodie. And it broke him. Not because she left, but because the dream did. He couldn't understand it. Wasn't love supposed to mean something? That's when he found Schopenhauer. And for the first time, he saw the pattern. It wasn't personal. It wasn't betrayal. It was nature. It was instinct. The love he felt wasn't mutual, it was biological necessity. Hers had expired. His hadn't. And just like that, he woke up. Schopenhauer said, "The will of the species has no interest in your happiness, only in its own continuation." This idea is terrifying, because it means that your most sacred feeling might not be yours. It might be something older, colder, more ancient than your name. It means that love is not about two souls uniting, but about two bodies being used by something they can't control. And if that's true, how much of your suffering was ever your choice? If love is the illusion, then power is the reality beneath it. Schopenhauer knew this. He saw it everywhere, in courtship, in marriage, in the slow collapse of men who believed they were winning when they were being tamed. He knew that modern love, despite its soft edges and romantic promises, was a game of control. And most men never realized they were pawns. They call it equality now, progress. But if you look closely, you'll see that the dynamic hasn't changed. It's just been disguised. In Schopenhauer's time, it was overt. The man worked. The woman selected. The man chased. The woman decided. The man sacrificed. The woman secured. Now we dress it up with new language, consent, partnership, emotional intelligence. But the structure is the same. Men prove, women choose. Men perform, women judge. Men offer, women decide. Schopenhauer wrote, "In the woman, nature has placed the power of choice. In the man, the duty of pursuit." It is the law of the species. You think you're in control. You think your words matter, that your confidence, your honesty, your romantic gestures will win her. But beneath all that, she feels. And what she feels is not logic, not fairness, not your worth. She feels dominance, mystery, potential, and loss of interest. Schopenhauer saw the cruelty in this, not because women are cruel, but because nature is. The man who loves the most often loses. The man who opens his heart too soon becomes invisible. The man who gives away his power to prove himself worthy often ensures he'll never be desired again. This isn't bitterness. It's observation. Imagine a young man, call him Daniel. Smart, sensitive, ambitious. He meets a woman who challenges him. She's sharp, sarcastic, emotionally distant. He sees in her a puzzle, and he wants to be the one who solves it. He gives her attention, buys her coffee, listens to her stories. He adapts himself to what she seems to admire: strength, detachment, charm. He hides his fears, laughs at things he doesn't find funny, waits for her messages, accepts her coldness as mystery. He tells himself she's just complicated. But what he doesn't realize is this: she isn't playing a game. She is the game, and he's losing. Every time he doubts himself, every time he suppresses what he truly wants to say, every time he gives more than he gets, he becomes smaller in her eyes. Because the feminine instinct doesn't reward availability. It rewards value. And value isn't declared. It's demonstrated through restraint, through boundaries, through the willingness to walk away. But Daniel doesn't walk away because he's been taught that love is proving, that love is persistence, that if he's good enough, patient enough, generous enough, she will see him. She won't, because deep down, she already knows. This is the part Schopenhauer understood, the part most men never learn until it's too late, that power and desire are linked. That love, when stripped of fantasy, is rarely mutual. It is transactional. One gives, one takes, one wants more. The other decides when it's enough. Schopenhauer said, the fundamental fault of the character of women is that they have no sense of justice. Of course, this statement is explosive. Modern audiences reject it. But what he meant wasn't moral. It was biological. In evolutionary terms, justice doesn't matter. Survival does. Selection does. Security does. And if that means discarding the man who once meant everything, then so be it. Does this mean women are bad? No. It means they are tuned to an instinct men will never fully understand. And unless a man learns to see it, he will always be confused by how quickly she changes, how cold she can become, how little she owes him after he's given her everything. It's not betrayal. It's nature. Men are taught to lead in business, in war, in politics, but in love, they become followers. They chase. They compromise. They explain themselves. They perform. And slowly, they give up power not only to women, but to the image of love itself. There's a reason so many men today feel lost, ghosted, rejected, mocked. They don't know the rules, because no one told them it was a game in the first place. Schopenhauer tried to tell us, but we laughed, called him a misogynist, said he was too angry, too cold, too broken. But maybe he wasn't broken. Maybe he was just done playing. There's a silence in the life of a man that no one hears. A kind of emptiness that doesn't scream. It settles. It lingers in long nights, in unopened messages, in the fading echo of, maybe it's just not the right time. He doesn't cry in public. He doesn't lash out. He just disappears. And the world doesn't notice. It praises his stoicism, his emotional control, his ability to move on. But what they don't see is that he's not moving on. He's shutting down. Schopenhauer saw this long before it became a crisis. He understood the deep, aching loneliness that men carry, not because they're weak, but because they've been taught they're not allowed to feel what's breaking them. He wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone." Alone. That word sounds peaceful in theory, but for the modern man, it has become a prison. Because he doesn't just lose love, he loses meaning. The relationship wasn't just emotional, it was existential. He gave her his future, his plans, his identity. And when she leaves, she doesn't just walk away. She takes a part of him with her. But no one tells him how to rebuild that. They say, just focus on yourself. They say, hit the gym, get rich, move on. They say she wasn't the one anyway. And maybe they're right. But it doesn't stop the pain from sinking deeper. Because for men like him, the ones who love truly, deeply, naively, it wasn't just about her. It was about redemption. About proving that he could be enough. That he could finally be chosen, seen, understood. And when that dream collapses, he's not just heartbroken. He's humiliated. That's a word we rarely hear in conversations about male suffering, humiliation. But that's what it feels like, to be used, ghosted, replaced, mocked. To know that your vulnerability wasn't met with care, but with calculation. Schopenhauer warned about this. He saw that love, once unreciprocated, becomes a form of psychological slavery. The man cannot let go, not because he's weak, but because he's addicted to the illusion of what could have been. You've seen him, the man who still checks her Instagram, the man who writes unsent messages at 2 a.m., the man who waits for a phone call that will never come, the man who sees her with another and tells himself, it's fine, I'm happy for her, but he's not, and he knows it. Because no one replaces her in his mind. Not really. He might sleep with others. He might go on dates. But the bond he made, even if it was based on projection, still haunts him. And it makes him question everything. His worth. His masculinity. His sense of logic. How could I have been so wrong? Why didn't she see what I was offering? Why did she choose him instead? This is the moment Schopenhauer feared for men. The moment when suffering becomes identity. When despair doesn't just knock, it moves in. Quietly. Permanently. He saw the horror of a man who sacrifices his joy for love, only to realize that love doesn't owe him anything. No closure. No justice. No explanation. Just silence. That silence, when left unspoken, turns into resentment. Not always at women, sometimes at the self. And sometimes, tragically, it manifests in self-destruction. We don't talk about it. We don't create spaces for it. We mock it in memes. We dismiss it as just heartbreak, but it's deeper than that. It's the collapse of a man's spirit. And what's worse, when he dares to speak about it, he's labeled bitter, or toxic, or weak. But maybe he's just waking up, because after the grief comes clarity. Clarity that what he called love may have been something else. Clarity that he gave himself away without being asked. Clarity that no one, not even her, forced him to bend. He did it himself, because he believed the myth. And now the myth is dead, and in that death, there is a chance to be reborn. But only if he chooses to stop chasing ghosts. Only if he dares to face the mirror and rebuild not from longing, but from truth. Schopenhauer didn't offer comfort. He offered clarity. Because for some men, clarity is the only way out of the dark. There comes a point when the suffering stops being poetic. When you've replayed the breakup 1,000 times. When you've exhausted every what if. When you realize she's not coming back. Not out of cruelty, but because the connection you believed in never existed the way you thought it did. That's the moment something new begins. Not healing, truth. The truth that Schopenhauer tried to whisper into a deaf world. That love, as you were taught to believe in it, is not salvation. It's not a reward for being good, loyal, honest, or kind. It is not something you earn. And most importantly, it's not something you can control. Because it was never about you. Not really. Schopenhauer argued that love, especially in its romantic form, is the most dangerous illusion of all, because it convinces the man to abandon himself in pursuit of someone else. He wrote, "We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people, and nowhere is that more true than in love." Think about it. The way you change to be more attractive. The way you compromise, flatter, adjust, suppress. All in the hope that maybe this time she'll stay. That maybe this one will be different. That maybe this woman will finally love you in the way you dreamed about when you were young, unconditionally, entirely, forever. But she won't. Not because she's evil, but because she's human. And humans don't love perfectly. They love based on instinct, need, timing, and self-interest. Just like you. The difference is, you were told to expect something divine. And she wasn't. She was allowed to be selfish. You were told to be selfless. She was allowed to walk away. You were told to hold on. She was allowed to choose. You were told to prove. Do you see it now? This isn't about women. This is about the system that taught you to measure your worth by whether or not a woman chooses you. Schopenhauer's message was brutal because it stripped away the fantasy. But it was also freeing, because once the illusion dies, you can begin to live honestly. You can stop chasing what won't fulfill you. You can stop giving away your soul in exchange for validation. You can stop romanticizing suffering as proof of love. You can, for the first time in your life, stand alone and say, "I am enough," not because you're perfect, but because you're whole. The modern man doesn't need more dating advice. He doesn't need more red flags or green flags or tactics or tricks. He needs silence, solitude, reflection. He needs to grieve what was never real. He needs to mourn the boy who believed in perfect love. And then he needs to rise. Not to impress her, not to win anyone back, but to reclaim the self he lost in the process of loving blindly. There's a man, we'll call him Thomas. He went through the worst of it. The betrayal, the ghosting, the humiliation, the long nights with no answers. He read Schopenhauer in the middle of all that. And at first, it made him angry. He didn't want the truth. He wanted comfort. But over time, he realized something strange. He wasn't angry at her. He wasn't even angry at women. He was angry at himself for not seeing it sooner. And that's when he stopped trying to win love. He stopped proving himself. He stopped expecting something outside of himself to make him whole. He didn't become cold. He became clear. And that's what real healing looks like. Because real freedom doesn't come from being loved. It comes from not needing to be. That's what Schopenhauer offered. Not hope, but clarity. Not comfort, but courage. And for men living in the ruins of false promises, that clarity is the only path forward.